Today we are joined by a very special guest, Kathy Slowinski. Kathy is portfolio CEO, so meaning running multiple different companies, 100 plus million revenue under management, but also saying an AI operator. So, Kathy, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I would say I'm an AI first operator at heart, and AI is just making my life better and easier as an operator.
Yeah, I was thinking about you'd mentioned something like that. I was thinking, okay, if this was 200 years ago or 180 years ago, you wouldn't say you're a telegraph operator, but you're the one at the forefront of technology using the coolest thing to be an operator. And the fundamentals of operatorness don't really change in that sense. Would you agree?
100%. If anything, I think now with AI, you can question the way you've done things before, and is there a better way to do it? It's not always about, for us at least, we've seen opportunities where it's not always about like automating the existing flows. It's how do you do away with the existing way of doing things, and there's just more efficient ways. We can open up into some of those a little bit later in this podcast.
Absolutely. And before we dive in too much, I want to introduce the rest of the show. We have Leonardo Gonzalez, Praveen
Hello.
Koka, Stan Huseltov, and myself. I'm Stephen Barr and David Proctor. So much. We're all in this big organization together. We're working off of AI first principles to be as effective as we can be. What was your aha moment for AI? What is when you saw this and thought, okay, it's not just a toy. This is I can use this to get stuff done.
I liken it to when I was probably in third or fourth grade and AOL, like everyone was getting those CD-ROMs at home for AOL. And I started using AOL and I realized I could like research the internet and talk to other people. I don't know if there was like one exact moment, but it was somewhere probably back half of 2023 when I had that same feeling of being that third grader rushing home at like 3:15 when school let out because no one got home till like 5 or 6, and I could tie up the phone lines at home until someone came home and either had to make a phone call or was waiting for a phone call back. That was my aha moment of this is here, it's real, it's not going away. You have to learn to use it just like you had to learn to use the internet. And honestly, I think we're in very early stages. But in general, I think I have an aha moment almost weekly, if not every couple weeks, where I'm like, holy cow, this is absolutely insane what this can do in my own day to day as a CEO, let alone my whole organizations.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we've talked about it being a force multiplier, and I think we see lots of different pop culture articles about okay, AI is 2x or 5x or half x or some number. What is your in your experience so far? People who are using it effectively, what would be the magnitude of force multiplier?
Yeah, I think everyone's having a different experience, especially depending how far along they are in their like journey of using AI. Like I said, we started using it here in 2023. I joined in April of 2023, and not long after that, we started dabbling with AI. Um, to give you hard metrics, we have increased revenue per head count by 4x. So we've been able to shrink our head count by 4x. So if we had 100 people when I started, we have 25 now. And that's actually roughly how many people I have in my org now, compared to what I have on almost the same amount of revenue. It's not like my revenue shrink that large of a percentage. It is truly revenue per head count. And I actually think we could shrink it by 50% yet again as we get better. And it's not like, to me, it's not about getting rid of people, it's about becoming ultra efficient, and getting rid of repetitive tasks and not having to spend exorbitant amounts of time on things you don't like to do, right? Because you can AI those things. So those are hard metrics. We've also been able to increase our uh, net margins by 13 points, not 13%, but 13 points. So huge changes for us financially. And as a CEO, I don't want a 100-person organization. I'd rather a 25-person organization. It is way easier to manage and to communicate. Like one of the hardest things as a CEO is communicating across the org, like what's going on. This just makes the whole org more efficient from a leadership and management perspective.
Those are some really fascinating numbers. I think we'll dive into the various aspects of it early on. We've got this awesome panel of folks here. I want to put this around the room for everybody. What was the task that AI is doing for you now that you really hated doing by hand and are very glad that AI has completely taken off your plate? So why don't we start with so Stan, how are you? What is something that you are so glad you don't have to do by hand anymore?
Reading. I am a bit ADHD, so when it's a lot of information that I need to navigate, especially as a developer, it's a lot of documentation. It's always the best source to get stuff, and it's just, I don't have to do it anymore. I can ask AI to explain something to me, and it does so very quickly, very efficiently, and answers my follow-up questions. It really helps.
Ooh, David?
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't go to me next. I'm actually not here. This is AI right now. So that's what I would
Okay,
say. No, I
pending
kid you not.
pending meeting.
You know, yeah, no, I hate to, I hate to jump on Stan's thought process there, but to me, it's not just summarization, right? Because it's kind of like just like we talk about like iteration when we do a lot of stuff. I iterate through how I work, right? So it's like I might read something, go do some aspect of that, come back and read it, and it's like this process, and that's an area where I love it because I can have it quickly summarized, I can glean information, I can take action, but then as I loop through it's like my assistant who knows where I'm at, what I'm thinking, and is able to kind of take away some of that ramping up time when you're iterating through and you're going back to something. There's that hold on, where was I at? It reduces that time to action for me dramatically.
Thank you, David. The other one, we will get to this question in a moment. Kathy, I wanted to ask you. So, when you inherit a code base and you have developers, so this was kind of building on David and Stan's points. When you inherit a code base, you spend an enormous amount of time just like digging through it and how did this work and why was this decision made and pruning through Git. In fact, one of my favorite science fiction authors coined this term computational archaeologist because the stacks of code that we have to go through are so big. And so, how have you seen this, like the information processing, amplify people in your organization
Around code or in general?
around code, especially in in an acquisition, for example, when all of a sudden you have this big new code base that you're responsible for, where the people who developed it might not be there anymore, and so you have to kind of figure out every code base has some kind of tribal knowledge baked into it that gets lost when it moves. So how do you use AI to kind of deal with that?
Well, I think it's a little bit like I think Stan said, it's an assistant. I'll give you an example right now. We have a CRM that had an app for it that was built years and years ago that was like just designed for iPads only. And the customers love it, but they wanted it on iPhone. Um, and so we don't have a single developer in house that was here when we acquired the company. I think back in 2016, 10 years ago, right? I mean, the chances of a developer sticking around a product for 10 years are slim to none these days, let alone in a post acquisition. But we have a junior developer that came in, had never touched the code base, had never worked on a CRM, and I think in under 6 weeks, he's been able to rewrite that app to not only be iPad but also iPhone compatible for the like for up to the most modern iPhone. What is it, 16, 17, whatever the current one is, um, and done this in half a quarter, right? Unheard of. But something like this would have I would have gotten estimates from a traditional development team of 2 quarters at least, and we've done this in one fourth the time. Not to kind of beat the dog to death, but like we're doing it in a quarter of the time. And like I said, we're still like in early days. I think the tools they're hitting their stride, but are they at like maturity yet? Cursor, for instance, which is what he's using to help him write the code. And he's using, I saw the Cursor stats a few weeks ago. He's one of the top Cursor AI users in the company, right? And this is a junior developer, right? He's not 20 years developing products. I think he's about 4 or 5 years in to his career, right? So it's pretty impressive to see results like that, especially my background's in product management, right? So I've been there where I'm like pulling my hair out because I've got 50,000 things I want to deliver to the customers and I can't because once we go do levels of effort and prioritize things, I've got 5 years worth of roadmap with the development team I've got, right? So what do? You only grab and pull the things that are highest value to the customers, right? That help retain the customers, make them happy, and as well as move along with what's happening technologically. This is one of those things. One guy by himself built this versus a team of 3 or 4 developers over multiple quarters, and that's where I think you've got the productivity improvements, right? But he also had to like teach himself how to use cursor the right way, go through the code, and he trusts that the AI is giving him the AI code helper, right? Cursor is giving him the right direction. But so far, everything looks great. We've got customers already beta testing it, and they're impressed by how fast we've been able to turn this around.
I think the most amazing part of that story for me, Kathy, is how the organization allowed them to do that. I can imagine. I worked in a couple of companies in my life, so I can't imagine any of my previous companies allowing me to just come in, straight up change, work on an independent project, use AI, say trust me, it works, and then this kind of independence is really remarkable in Trilogy. And I think it ties into really well to the article that came out, I think, a week ago, where CEO of Ignite Tech said that they fired 80% of developers in 2020 just because of AI, and they have no regrets. And it's very interesting how our company operates with giving independence to these forward thinkers, but also not being afraid to use AI to automate jobs, like really automate jobs.
You guys are going to scare the heck out of half the people who watch this. We've been talking about 80% cuts and in a 75% cuts. I'm just throwing it out there.
What I would tune into. I see this kind of short on YouTube as these people discussing how 80% equals good and how one developer just made such a significant difference. That was my literally number one thing that I mentioned on the interview. When I interviewed this company, I'm like, I want to make a difference. And I did not know how true that was.
Well, and I think that in aggregate, right, if you get rid of 75% of the workforce, now again, I think we've all at some point lost a job, and in the interim, it sucks. It's awful to go through that uncertainty. But in the long run, right, I think it's not like there's going to be, we're in steady state, and this is the only thing that's changing. I think there's going to be more than 4 times the amount of new stuff to go and build. So it's not like, okay, we're going to stick with exactly what we're going to do with 75% less people. There's going to be 4 times or 10 times or 20 times more cool stuff out there built by the same amount of people. Actually,
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think that you do have, we talked about this last time, is, there's evolution, right? So where a job goes away, a new opportunity may arise.
One thing I've been seeing a lot of is like single person teams, right? So one engineer building one product or 2 at most, because they can do so much more. And I think it makes teams a lot more efficient just because the collaboration overhead is now largely removed. And you're seeing this both in startups and even in teams like ours, where we have a large group of people building multiple products, but moving a lot quicker because it's just 1 or 2 people working on each of those.
Well, 2 things are happening, right? We're having like the industrial revolution for the corporate world is happening. Whether people see it or not is another story. It just depends on where they're at. And 2, the days of waiting, like I said, I used to wait years to get my roadmaps built. If I have a 20-person development team and I could 5x their speed, that means I could probably get 5 times more roadmap stuff done, maybe 4 times, right? If you put in overheads, but I should be seeing so much more output if I have an AI forward product and development team than I used to 2 years ago, right? And so now you are delighting your customers. You are able to iterate and move faster. There's a product you've always wanted to build, like a side product to your product, something that's complementary. You can build that now, right? So it's not always about like firing everyone, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say a lot of companies are going to take this and make it an efficiency gain, right? They should. You shouldn't have to be growing your company at negative margins anymore, right? You should be able to be cash flow positive and still growing,
Well, and thinking through what
right?
you were
Which,
saying about the iPhone app example, like rewinding to 3 or 4 years ago, this would have been okay. We can't do this in house. We have to find a design team. We have to get some RFPs. Then we're gonna have to pick one. We're gonna have to budget for it. It's gonna be a 6 figure 6 month project. It's probably gonna go over budget. And there's all this ceremony and slowness and the weekly check-ins and all this stuff. And you can just put two people on it, like Praveen was saying. They just go knock this out, and it's so much faster. Like for me, my Achilles heel in development was always building front end stuff. Like I cannot get CSS to do what I want it to do to save my life. But now it's like, okay, I can mock it up in Lucidchart and hand the screenshot to Claude Code and say, okay, make it look like this but nicer. And that's good enough for what I need to do. We're going to shift gears a little bit into, well, I guess kind of continue the AI first organization. So, what was the trajectory into building an AI first org, and what were the discussions that went into why are we going to do this? And because it's clear now, but was it clear 2 years ago that this was the right move?
yeah, I'm just going to put a bow tie on what you were saying. Like companies move slow. That's a mindset thing for most companies. They think they have to move slow. We, if you've been here for any period of time, we don't move slow at Trilogy. Although sometimes I'm like, God, I wish we could go faster. Um, to answer the trajectory thing, that's a mindset too. We basically like, you know, put it in writing. We're going to be AI first. We just started saying it. It was a mind shift change. We manifested it. We're an AI forward organization. We say it all the time. We still say it all the time 2 years later. And we didn't know what that meant at first, right? I don't think anybody knew what that meant 2 years ago. We just started dabbling, right? We encouraged our people, not just, and again, not to make fun of you guys, and I said this a couple weeks ago, it wasn't just like five nerds in the corner go play with ChatGPT. It was everybody at the company start using these tools, right? As they come out, like here's budget to go try things, play with them, see how they can help your day to day. Whether it was something, if you're in sales, account management, chances are you're either on meetings with customers or you're in email or Salesforce or NetSuite, like one of these tools. So find ways to get yourself out of those painful things faster, right? So we manifested it. We started talking about it. We started doing it around the back half of 2023. I want to say October 23. I sort of implemented a hackathon approach to AI, and I dubbed it Wens.ai, right? So every Wednesday, we would block out the whole day from 9 Central to, let's call it 3 Central, with a 1 hour demo at the end of the day. And my whole org would go, first we created a roadmap of things we wanted to improve. And then we prioritized it and grabbed a few things. So every team kind of went and worked on one or two things where we, for instance, wanted to AIify our customer success process, right? Which is where we, whether it's quarterly, half yearly, yearly, have some sort of customer success approach with our customers, make sure they're happy, yes or no. If they're not, how do we make you happy? And we come up with a game plan, whether it's uh, fixing a problem they have, making sure they're getting more value out of the product, working with PS, our professional services team, to customize something, right? So we try to AIify that. At that time, the tools weren't ready. Like it just became like a glorified, crappy chatbot website. And I'm like, we can't put this in front of customers. But the value came from everybody on the team got their hands dirty. Everybody had to learn how to build a piece of that product, and it was the repetition, right? So that was 2023. We did Wednesday AIs for about half a year, and I sort of saw progress fading, so I stopped it. We also started getting other BUs joining, so it went from like a 25-person call to a 100-person call, and it became a little disruptive. So I killed it. 3 months later, I brought it back again. I made it a half day thing, right? With more choose your own adventure. And so we saw progress again for like 6 months, 9 months, and then I sort of killed it again. So we've gone through these like ups and downs with the Wens.ai. Like we'll make a ton of progress, and then we sort of get to a point where things slow down. So it's okay to shut it off, shut it down for a little bit, let people go work on some projects, and then we sort of bring it back, especially when we've seen like big jumps in technology. So at the beginning of this year, one of the reasons I brought it back was because all the agentic frameworks started coming out, and I really wanted my team to get comfortable with agents in general, whether it was N8N, AutoGen, Make.com, you name it. I was like, go out and build things with these agents. And now we're seeing agentic frameworks kind of popping up right in ChatGPT that you can build, and or like the browser-based agents you can send off to do projects. So it's for me, it's been an evolution. It's gone up, it's down. It's not been like a perfect curve. It's been like up, down, right? And you learn a technology and you get comfortable and you implement it into your workflow. And then you sort of plateau out for a hot minute, month or two, 4 months. It just depends on what comes out. And all of a sudden something new comes out. And so you chase after that again. So for us, it's been, because I think we're more cutting edge, bleeding edge, we learn, we figure out what works, what we can implement, and then we sort of carry on and wait for like the next big evolution. Like we are by no means building things from scratch. We're trying to utilize the tools that are out there.
Well, I have about 10 follow-up questions. But first, everyone on the panel, what's it like being on the other end of this? To be on the side where you're being encouraged to use AI, you're learning it on the job. Like, what was that like? How about Leonardo? How was your experience being on the flip side of this? Just going to be encouraged to learn and experiment.
I mean, it's a constant process of discovery and exploration. I love keeping my finger on the pulse of things that are emerging because there are new models, new agents, new libraries and techniques and use cases coming out on a weekly or sometimes daily basis. So part of the thing that has become the new normal is opening the mind to complete disruption of the status quo, looking at new capabilities, looking at new workflows, new processes, to do the same thing that you were doing before with greater speed and power, but also to do things that were never possible before. So it changes both how we do what we do, and it changes what we do itself.
I'd love to jump onto Leonardo's point here. What we are encouraged to do is we're encouraged to move quickly, and something that Kathy spoke about, we're encouraged to move quickly. One of my research articles was about memory frameworks for AI, and then I came up with this opinion, and I had the opinion, and then the new thing, literally as I published my article, my research, a new thing came out, and then it changed my mind. And then recently I was working on something called hierarchical reasoning models implementation, and I thought it was the best thing ever. And then I just casually mentioned it to Leonardo, and he goes, "Well, Stan, there's actually been quite a few like debunked things about it." And that, but I don't feel upset because I didn't sink my like half a year into it, because we move quickly. We in this place we're encouraged to move quickly, and that way it was really nice experience instead of me being, oh my god, I wasted half a year.
Awesome. Praveen, what about you? Your thoughts on the how it's been like just trying to implement AI first in your day to day?
Yeah, honestly, so when I started off, I would have liked to do everything thoroughly and for a long period of time. But then, so my first, initial research, I would spend a couple of weeks, researching a certain framework or whatever. But then I found that it was too slow, and so exactly like how Stan said, you take too long, something new has come up, and you kind of have to rethink or add another candidate to your research. So we've kind of found that the sweet spot is somewhere between a few days to a week to pick up any new technology and experiment with it. And we've just been doing that. And we've been churning out a lot of insights on the latest stuff, and the latest stuff is constantly becoming obsolete. And that's been the experience.
Do you guys find that like getting comfortable with one tool though helps you, even if it's just 2 weeks, right? Like go spend 2 weeks to really deep dive into, Cursor and really learn how to use it to get value out of it versus
I
one
can't.
day.
Yeah, I can't speak for everyone. I'll say for me, so I might do something like I did a kind of a dive last week into some asynchronous agents, and I was surprised that one of them I thought was going to do much better. It didn't do it in the test that I put forth. So I framed it in a 1 week kind of test. It doesn't mean I'll never use that again, though, right? Like now that I've been exposed to it, I'll use it. And it's kind of like in a weird way, like I actually was forming this thought as everyone else was talking. We talk about how AI makes you do things faster. You talk about how it allows you, to reduce headcount because, of the efficiencies. And in a weird way, I don't want to hope it's not artificial expertise, but I almost feel like we're able to form expertise a little bit faster. I think back to like when I started. Okay, it's like when I started my career, it was in networking. And how do you get experience with stuff? Is if you get online, you're working with stuff, and then what have you. So it's like, I had a very well formed opinion about Cisco routers because I worked with them all the time. Then it was I had a really well formed opinion about Juniper routers because I worked with them all the time. But unless you were in a big company that had that available, you didn't get those experiences, that exposure. Now I fast forward to today. So it took me years and years and years and tons of experiences to be able to have well-formed thoughts. Now it's like, I would say that I'm typically kind of pragmatic, and I slow down to think about how I want to approach something. And I still do that, but I do find that in a positive way. At first I wasn't as comfortable with it. Having these like quick hitting, you've got to figure stuff out, research and go. It's helpful because it actually makes you form an opinion. You can change your opinion. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's evolution. Like, so it's like, I form opinions like, this tool's great. Next week, maybe it's not so great anymore. Or, this tool sucks, but next week, maybe it's the best, maybe they fixed it and they go through it. But I think that's what drives the conversation forward. So it's like, it wasn't naturally something for me, this whole approach of like learn a lot of stuff or research into things and don't deep dive to them. It wasn't as natural. But I will say, like, now I've transitioned into this idea of I actually like it because I get a lot of exposure to a lot of stuff a lot quicker. That was a lot of the word uses of a lot. So, yeah, that was it. I just, to me, it's helped me learn a lot faster.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And my mind is going in so many different directions. I wanted to bring it to the business side of things, where we're talking about, at the end of the day, we're not a Google corporate culture, right? We want to move fast, we get things done. It's very productive. One of the questions is, how do you balance the experimentation part with still like, okay, things have to get done on time, on budget, and because there's always a temptation to be like, okay, I'm experimenting here, but this has to ship next month. Let's just do it the way we've always done it because that's more predictable. So how do you balance that tension?
Yeah. So, I mean, we again manifested and created the mindset of we are AI forward, and we encourage everyone 5 hours a week of time just on your brain lifts, let alone probably another 5 hours a week of time on um, using tools. And as what I have found is we rarely run out of time to do our day jobs. We run out of time to do like the AI things we want to do, but we'll put those on hold and just sort of do them the next week. Um, the day jobs have become more efficient because we've learned how to use AI to deal with things. I'll give you an example. I don't think anyone on my team writes from scratch an email to customers anymore. Why? Because you can't remember the history half the time of everything that happened. Like I have 7,000 customers in my portfolio. I can't remember everything about every customer. But guess where all that information is at? It's in a combination of Salesforce and in our email inboxes. And so the tools that we have at our disposal, like Shortwave, can help us go research a chronology of things that have happened with the customer, right? And see all the notes that we have in Salesforce and quickly put that together. Back in the day, you'd have to log into Salesforce. You'd have to go find all your emails for that customer, and you'd have to put together some kind of a story. Now, Shortwave you can if you know how to prompt it right, you can have it respond to the customer and or just do your quarterly check-in with the customer so much faster, and follow up on all the action items from last time instead of having to look it all up. It's all there, and AI can help you move it along faster, right? We've all been there where we've got to write an uncomfortable email to someone and we're not good at it. AI will make it happen so much faster, right? I've had a couple of those recently where I had to push a customer along, to get something done, and instead of using my language, I chose like Chris Voss methodology for negotiating something, and the emails are as good as Chris Voss would write them, right? So why would I spend half an hour crafting an email when AI can craft it for me in a minute?
And for those in the audience who don't know the context, Chris Voss, look him up. He's been on some great podcasts. He's been on Huberman. He's like an former FBI negotiator in these very tense situations where life and death on the line. I think there's a lot to be learned from that. And so to be able to take all of those interviews and things that are now in the kind of common corpus of language and say, apply this to this email, that's so cool that we could do that. And Kathy, I saw your LinkedIn post, I think it was 3 months ago, where you said, I saw someone writing an email by hand, like it's 1998, right? And it's almost like like using a quill pen. It's like, okay, it's an art form that you can do if you want to, but you don't have you don't have to anymore. That's really neat. I like that a lot. Another question, with AI first, I think one of the things you've talked about a lot is experimentation and encouraging that. And how did you balance that versus, okay, as an example, I've been in companies where they say, okay, we're going to be more green. And so they put a bunch of recycling bins out and say, okay, now we're green. And it felt very like they were ticking a box, but it wasn't real. So how did you decide how much leeway to give in this AI first org versus just like buy everyone cursor?
Yeah, this is probably the least AHR thing I say all the time. I'm gonna get in trouble at some stage, but I call it monkey see, monkey do, right? If I'm doing it, everyone's gonna do it, right? As a leader, if you want people to do things, you got to set the pace and the tempo and the culture. So I often was presenting and demoing things to my team as well as a leader. I wasn't just there to watch. Back to like, yeah, you throw a couple recycling bins out and you're suddenly green. No, you've got to do it. You've got to have leadership do it as well. I think that's been one of the biggest um, challenges for a lot of companies is, they go and they're like, we're going to be AI forward, but then leadership does nothing. And they just expect people to figure things out. People need direction, and sometimes they just need a role model, like to look to and see what they're doing. And people sometimes will see what you're doing, and that gives them that light bulb moment to be like, oh, there's something tangential to what she just demoed that I could do for my day job. And so it just creates this kind of waterfall effect, right? Or flywheel effect that people see from each other. The other big thing is demoing to each other. I have my product people demo to my salespeople, like my whole commercial team demos to each other so they can see what they're doing amongst teams and either borrow pieces of it or again have those aha moments where they're like, oh my God, that's so relevant to my job. Like I should use that whole framework that they used. So that's I think where we've gotten the flywheel is working together, not in isolation.
Oh, that's remarkable leadership. I wanted to ask you, how do you get, so you say monkey see, monkey do, you demo, lead by example, but where do you get
Yeah,
your examples? Do you have somebody you
great
follow?
question. I was an early Twitter user. Like I think my account's from like back in 2007, and I like reignited my Twitter account probably in back half of 2023. I get a lot from there. LinkedIn, it's a little more like commercialized, but Twitter, there's a ton of people I follow on Twitter. They post things. There's people that are constantly posting videos of the things that they do or just examples of what they do. You're going to have your people who are like, they tell you the whole world's changed because of AI. And then you've got your people that are just constant like content contributors. Those are the people I tend to follow. I'll see something they did and I have those aha moments. My favorite is Greg Eisenberg. If you guys aren't following him, I'm like a Greg Eisenberg fangirl. I even get him to respond to me sometimes on Twitter, which is fantastic. But he just posts a ton of stuff. Does he glorify some things sometimes? Yes. But His stuff is pretty good generally, and if you listen to enough of his stuff and watch his YouTube videos, you'll get your aha moments for your own organization, whether it's on the commercial side of the business, the tech side of the business. You will get your aha moments, and you'll be like, I'm going to build that to solve a problem that I'm dealing with within my organization.
Wow.
Well, I just followed Kathy as a result of that.
Yes.
I don't put out, funny enough, I don't put enough content out. I do a newsletter called the AI Boss. It's really targeted at people in C-suite roles who kind of don't know how to get started, and I give them the most basic ideas on things to do. So I posted one yesterday. One went out today. It was like a one pager of tools to try and like how they work. And then yesterday I posted like a great example. I had to create this crazy chronology of events since 2020. And I was like, it's going to take me like 5 hours. I connected ChatGPT to my Gmail. I had it pull all the emails from my correspondences with a bunch of people, created a timeline, created links to any documents, took 10 minutes of prompt, 30 minutes for the agentic browser to run in the background. I had everything I needed instead of like 10 hours. And I'm like, that is a great tip that we all go have those moments where we have to put together like something that's all in our inbox and it's going to take you half a day to do. Whether you're renovating a house or dealing with a legal thing or acquiring a company or working on like a long 5-year project, you can pull it all together quite quickly. So I'll have like these aha moments during the week, and I'm like, I should share that with my newsletter, and that's kind of the inspiration for the newsletter.
That's so cool that you were able to use those tools first, right? Because going back to the email example, if you had said everyone use AI, but I'm going to have my executive assistant write my emails for me, like that wouldn't. Like, oh, great. Well, I don't have an EA, so I guess I'm on my own here. But actually showing, like, okay, if my boss can do it, my AI boss can do it, I guess we all can. So I love that lead by example.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about getting a chief of staff about a year ago, and I was like, hellbent. I need just someone to help me. And then the AI tools got better, especially these latest round of agentic tools, Manus, GenSpark, even ChatGPT's agentic's getting better. I'm like, why would I have to bring in a whole nother headcount, a chief of staff, another person to have one-on-ones with, which I don't really have one-on-ones very frequently. I could just talk to AI all day, right? And I don't even type anymore. I just use something called Super Whisper. I tell it what I want it to do. I let it go. I get a message when it's done, and then I go look at it, and then I correct it a little bit, and it goes off and works on it again. So I'm like, I don't really need a chief of staff to help me with projects as much as I probably did a year ago because I have AI helping me move things along faster.
So isn't that leadership? Actually, it's like you talked earlier about the whole thing. It's like you're leading by example. But it's like, a lot of times I think people look and they go, oh man, if I had an EA or if I had a chief of staff, I could do this, I could do that. And actually what you're doing is you're showing them you can, like, look, I'm not using the real, I've got it with agentic AI or with this tool or that tool. So it's to me, that's empowering to a workforce because now you're showing not only how to do it, but that it works.
Absolutely. And that goes back to my monkey see, monkey do. There's got to be a better term to use, but I've used that since.
I think lead by example is that
Yeah.
term, but yeah.
But I'm like, if you do it, everyone will follow, right? Especially if they like the results you're getting. So that's actually the aha moment for me too, is when I see my team posting about the things that they're doing to each other. We have this one channel that's for all things AI, and they're constantly posting in there. And like, that makes me like, gives me the happy parent or happy leader moment of like, oh my God, the kids are doing what I've been asking them to do forever. Like if you have children, you know what I'm talking about. Like when your kids finally put their dishes away, you're like, I've won, right? You have those moments as a leader too. You're like, my team is doing the things and they love it and they're seeing the benefits of it, right? And so that's back to manifesting mindset, and then just keep putting the pressure on and pushing people, right? You have to push a little bit for it. It's not just gonna all magically happen. Like, I'm pretty sure people did not want to show up on Wednesdays for the Wednesday AI, right? They're like dreading it. I'm sure some people were, but now we have a situation where like they're posting their own stuff throughout the week, and that's when I know it's working. Are we at the pinnacle of all things? No, but it's like working and it's happening organically, which is awesome.
I don't want to steal Steven's role here, but I do have a question then. So how did you get your kids to start doing their dishes?
That
Oh,
was my same question. I've got four.
I've never got the kids to do dishes. Are you kidding?
That was really my takeaway from this. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I had the same question. I've got four of them. It's dishes are always an issue.
It's, it's like one of those, it's very tangential. It's very tangential to parenting, right? Like when the kids finally do something you've been begging them to do, it's, you just have like this happiness moment. It happens as a leader when your team does the things that you've kind of manifested and hope that they would get to there, and they're doing it. It's like the best feeling, right? And then it's like they're sort of motivating each other. And so there's less leadership and more camaraderie happening, right? Amongst, and even a little bit of competition amongst themselves, I think. So are we ready to talk a little bit about work smart?
Let's do it.
Right. All right. So work smart. Do you guys want to define it? Do you want me to define it?
Let's see.
I'm happy to define it, but in the way I understand it, it's we have this tool called WorkSmart in Trilogy and all the sister companies that monitors our usage, our tabs, and it classifies what we do into different categories. One of them being AI. And one thing that surprised me about WorkSmart is how much it knows what is AI and what isn't AI. Right now, it knows whether you're just looking at Cursor or that you are actually using the AI features of Cursor, which is remarkable and something to get used to. But there's benefits of it are huge. I think one of my projects was actually related to. I know one of my projects was related to WorkSmart because we're building an AI coach that would help you in real time, and it actually utilizes the telemetry gathered by WorkSmart, and the suggestions are given based on what you're doing. You might want to shift your focus a bit. You might want to close down some tabs that are distracting you. So it's a really remarkable tool that we have in our company, and I'd love to hear what you think about it, Kathy.
I've used it twice because I've actually worked here twice. So when it first came out in 2015, it was fantastic. And actually, like one of the values of it was we coached our teams on time boxing, right? Instead of doing like 15 things at one time, right, and going from one thing to another, we did this thing Gemba walk where we kind of like looked and saw how people were spending their time, and then we coached time boxing. So it was, in the morning, if that's your zone of excellence time, that's when you spend doing like your high critical thinking work, right? Whether you're a developer and you just need super focus, and that's like the funniest thing. No developer develops at 6 o'clock in the morning. They develop till like 2 in the morning. But anyway, if that's your time to like do your critical cognitive work, do it then, right? And then maybe have your meetings a little bit later in the day, and then sort of wrap up your day with like basic administrative stuff, right? So we coach people that organize their day. And now, fast forward 11 years later, we're using it to coach people on how to utilize AI more, and where they're utilizing it and where they're not. So the funniest thing is every Monday morning I post the stats from the team, right? And it's a little bit of a who's gotten the best numbers, right? Um, and over time, you could just see, I think my team's average is high 60s. I didn't do an average today, but last couple weeks, I put the pressure on and I posted everybody's stats to everybody. I made it public, right? And so there's a little bit of opening the kimono up, and the people that are getting low scores are like, oh man, like I didn't know I was that much lower than everybody else. And then the people that are getting high scores, people are literally reaching out to them and saying, what are you doing? Like, I need your help, right? So now this is back to like the kids doing the dishes. They're helping each other. This morning at 7:15, I got pinged, and it's Labor Day in the United States today, so I wasn't planning on working much. Got pinged at 7:15, like, where are the numbers? We want to see the numbers, and posted them 2 minutes later. And the team loves that, right? The fact that they're asking for the numbers every Monday morning, again, is one of those success signs of like they want to be AI forward. They want to see how they're doing as a team individually. It's a little bit competitive, right? Like we're all have some level of competitiveness inside of us. So it's that culture that's created. It's that mindset that we've been able to create over the last 2 years within the org. That's when it's working.
That is free market, right? Competition drives the best performers and to innovate, to improve. And actually, interesting enough, in engineering department, I had a look at the stats thing. It very much correlates. The more you use AI, the best AI adopters perform the best results in terms of issues resolved and problems problems resolved. It's very interesting to observe that direct correlation. Have you observed that in your teams? Highest AI equals best results?
The highest AI yeah, maybe. Like if I think about the specifically of my AI developers, those that are consistently scoring above 75% are definitely able to push the most amount of releases out. Um, I think from the sales perspective, those with the highest AI scores are able to touch the most amount of customers in a given week, right? Um, I That's a great stat that I should probably pull together with my team. So they're going to hate me when I talk to them tomorrow and say, we need to see how many customers we were touching 2 years ago versus what we do today, because I guarantee you it's double or triple what we used to be able to reach out to because we're so more efficient.
But is the quality the same? So would you recognize the quality as being the same?
It is a hard metric. The metric I have is our renewal rates, which are actually going up.
Wow.
So that's what I wanted to ask about, is kind of generalizing, zooming out a little bit, because there is the thing of Goodhart's law, which says that once a measure becomes a target, it's not a good measure anymore, right? So obviously, with any measure, you can start gaming it. And there used to be the joke about Java developers saying that they got paid per line of code. And they go, okay, this is great. So being obviously the AI usage is a proxy for something like renewals. And if I spent all day in Chat GPT just chatting away, it would not be a great measure, but I could get 100% on this number. So what are the things at the end of the day that you're looking for? You mentioned renewals. What are your other kind of productivity metrics that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, our company is about profitability, about renewals, right? Retaining our customers as long as we can. Those are my two largest metrics I care about. Like, I don't care if someone's getting 100 AI score. I want to make sure we're not shrinking and our customers are happy and successful and they stay as customers as long as possible. That's for me as a CEO, those are my two metrics from a like financial side. I think from a development side, product side, are we innovating with our products, right? If we innovate our products, our customers are most likely going to be willing to stay. If you do nothing to your product for 5 years, your customers aren't going to stick around. Something new and sexy will come out in the market that they're going to replace you with. So I think back to renewal rates, right? If those product releases are going out and customers are happy, they will continue to stick around and renew. And that's a problem every company has in software, right?
It's actually interesting, Stephen, that you brought this up about the metric being abused to get the highest score. I was surprised when I first it was for one of my researches that when I first saw the metric that the highest AI users get the best results. I was a bit surprised because AI is a powerful tool to amplify what you do, but you have to know what you're doing, and sometimes it gets messy. So I'd think middle AI performance would be the best developers, because too many commits, you don't want to have too many commits, too many lines of code, too much unnecessary stuff that you can't control. You want to have minimal additions. Perfection isn't when you can't add anymore, when you can't subtract anymore. Perfection is when you can't subtract anymore, right? It's the minimal code that runs. But that's why I was surprised. I looked at the metrics and it was clear as day. It was the AI correlates with performance. So maybe it's not that I don't believe the developers are sitting here abusing the metric. They have to way too much to do, right?
Well, here's a good question for you guys. And I jumped ahead in the agenda a little bit. Do you think the people that will get the most value from AI are senior people who have a lot of experience and use AI to make themselves even more productive, right? Like the quintessential 5x developer or 10x developer that is more senior, a mid-level person, and we'll stick to the guardrails of development work, or a junior person, like a junior person that's all AI all the time, a mid-level person who gets pretty good at AI and formidable and really knows how to use it, or a senior person who's like, I'm going to learn to use this, and then I'm already 10x the junior guy. I'm going to 10x myself again.
I'm gonna jump in again, and because I have a bit of a hot take on this one. So it goes like this: it's not about the senior. I don't think it's about the seniority. I think it's about the something you said, the 5x, 10x developer. Like a 10x developer is not something I feel that you can obtain by just coding the same program all the time, like some same programming language all the time. You have to have the mindset, you have to have the dedication, but you also have to have open mind. It's a particular set of qualities that you need to have. And if you're a 10x developer who's 2 years into their experience, coding journey, or 20 years, you will 10x your output. But if you're a developer who kind of just like does their job and they've worked on something for 10 years and they didn't really have any curiosity to start with, then your output's not going to change. Some stuff might get messier, some stuff might get better. Averages out to nothing, to just at 1x.
I want to make sure everyone jumps in on this one because this is a really good one.
I wanted to mention a take that I read on this a while back called the reverse centaur. There's the idea of a centaur. It's like, half human, half AI. And these are people that adopt AI to transform their process and are excited about learning new things and using AI in innovative ways. And it's kind of a success. From the get-go, the ingredients are in place to have a productive experience and to transform in a positive way. And then there's the reverse centaur, which are people that are forced to use AI to increase their productivity, and they don't necessarily see it as a transformative force. They just see it as a burden, a learning curve. And it could be partly just an attitude or perception thing, but it could also be the dynamics of how the AI adoption is, what the requirements and the expectations are. And if really people are just trying to accelerate their own automation and eventual demise, they could see AI as a destructive and obstructive force. So it's really interesting to see kind of the polar opposite experiences that people can have with AI based on all these factors.
Let's see, David, what do you think?
I'm gonna give the boring answer. I think for the junior developer, I think it helps everyone in different ways. I think for the junior developer who's really leaning on AI, they can probably ramp up a lot faster and produce more than they could have traditionally. I think for the senior developer who is really leaning on AI, they're going to get different takeaways from it. It's just it's like anything. It's like how do you basically you have a tool. How do you use the tool? I mean, I don't want to use the same analogy every single week, but I go back to like my power tool thing. Like if you have a mechanic you've got a junior mechanic and he's given power tools, and you've got a senior mechanic and he's given power tools, does the power tools affect one of them better than the other? I mean, I think their roles are different. The tool is just going to help them be more efficient and actually diagnose problems and do the things that their expertise is. So yeah, in other words, I think it is what you make of it. I think if you look at like what's your potential based off of where you're at, can it help you fulfill it? And the answer is yes, it can. How that looks is, I think, different for where you're at in your life and your journey, in your career.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it really depends on that approach instead of your seniority. You can have junior developers who are vibe coding and they're amazed that they are able to do things and see products, and accelerates their learning process. And so they could be early in their careers, but be able to have a good impact and advance quickly. And I've also seen senior people that are dug into their trenches and they're used to doing things the way that they've done, and it's harder for them to adapt. Obviously, I also see the inverse for each of those, but I'd say it's pretty orthogonal to your level of seniority.
Praveen, what do you think?
So my view on this is, I think if you're doing junior work, which is basically, gluing together stuff, building repetitive things like APIs, you're going to be automated away anyway, right? So the guys who have sense of intuition or creativity, uh, who can actually add that X factor, those are the guys who will actually survive. Firstly, this whole AI wave, and I think that's a small number. And the way I see it now, that's largely the more senior guys. But I mean, to what Stan said, I think there's also, it depends a lot on how motivated and driven you are. But my view is the guys with a slight streak of genius are the guys who will, actually not be automated, and everybody else will have to figure out what to do.
Yes, a slight stroke of genius, such as ourselves, will not be automated. But no, Praveen, I wanna agree with you on this. I forgot what I was gonna say. Wow, that's embarrassing. I was gonna agree with Praveen very strongly. So it's
Yeah, what I'm
So-
hearing him say is there is an industrial revolution happening for these corporate jobs, right? And two things I wrote down was mindset and motivation, right? We talked a little bit about mindset earlier. Motivation is the other thing. People that are motivated and see the opportunity, well, they'll chase after this, right? Those that don't, they'll probably be in the middle of the herd. They might get culled, they might not. And those that are resistant, I don't know. Don't know. I don't know where the future will hold for them, but it's not looking good. I mean, that would be the equivalent of someone that still wants to use a typewriter. We don't see typewriters in offices anymore, right? In fact, now we can just talk. We don't even have to type. So that's just how fast things are moving. But I totally agree with you guys. It's mindset, it's motivation. You got to manifest this stuff. You got to want it. Otherwise, you'll just get left behind.
I remembered what I was gonna say. I'm sorry, guys. So here goes. I actually, I keep reading these takes that if there's no junior developers, like David said and Praveen said, if there's no junior developers, then who's going to become senior developer? And that ties into what Praveen said. It's the people who have this kind of, a bit of a spark. They'll become the good developers. But right now, AI is opening doors for non-technical people. You don't have to be a junior engineer to become a senior engineer. You can be, well, clearly Kathy is a great example. She you basically sound like a principled engineer to me who doesn't write any code, or a CTO, but you inspire people to use like AI tools and code. You don't have to be a developer to become a good, like, the leader in development.
I'm going to jump in on this really quick. I actually worked with someone in Kathy's organization who, I'm not going to call him out or say what it is yet until he wants to show it, but he asked me a question about something and he put together, and this is like from a sales perspective, he put together, I would call it an entire application. It's like a suite of applications that does like automation, does workflows, meeting ideas. Like it's like GenSpark, but for, a sales guy type thing. And it was something that, I mean, I was going to say 5 years ago, 5 months ago, maybe, but like, years ago, it would have taken a team of people to build and to do. This is someone who's not a programmer, who's not a developer, like it's not his job, but he's finding it useful. And so to your point, Stan, like when you say like, hey, this opens up the ability, like not just for playing, but for like actually someone to be able to produce results in a field that isn't necessarily, their what they do. It's just, to me, that's like where this opportunity just becomes amazing. So that's where like, what is a developer? I do think there's the traditional developers, and I'm not taking away from that, but I also think it's kind of exciting to see what maybe someone from a different perspective can do now that tools are a little bit more open and able to be work with people in like a more layman's approach to how do you create an app, or how do you do something that makes it work for you.
I wanted to jump in with some perspective here. I think what I'm seeing and what I definitely feel for myself is whether you're junior, whether you're senior, it's that being able to revisit your assumptions. So I know for me, right, I still see code as a scarce resource that, if I see a lot of code, I think, okay, a lot of effort had to go into that. And to revisit that and say, okay, this is not a scarce resource anymore. I think Ethan Mollick, he had a great post about how, it's easy to ask ChatGPT for 10 ideas about something. Why are you not asking it for 1,000 ideas? And why are you not asking it another AI to prune through those ideas? And then like it's not a scarce resource anymore. And I'm still having the mindset of, okay, I have a scarce resource that I now have more access to than before. But it would be like I actually have to totally revisit my internal cost functions of what this is and what this represents. Um, and say, okay, why don't I generate the same product with 10 different agents and 10 different approaches, have them all work in parallel, and then choose the best one instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to be slightly faster at my job by typing and chatting with Claude Code. No, why don't I have 10 different autonomous agents with 10 different instruction sets go off on their own, generate it, and then bring it back to me and tell me which one's the best? So it's just that ability to revisit your assumptions that I think really helps.
Is there a little bit of the this is one of my spiky points of view that's gonna, I think, unfold as this industrial corporate revolution happens, is like the idea of departments are a constructive fallacy, like departments within organizations. Like you will no longer have a dedicated marketing only team and sales only team, right? Like those will converge to be go to market. But I think your product people could even work on go to market. I think your salespeople can build stuff, right? What happens to like these sales, marketing, product development, legal, HR teams that like have always been like the guardrails of every organization, and usually the downfall of so many organizations, because nobody communicates outside of their department very efficiently. It's rare. It maybe in a smaller company it's a little easier. You get to about 125 in any organization, I forget the name of the principal, but like at 125 people you actually lose the sense of community, and communication really starts to degrade heavily. But what happens if we get rid of departments and you have just like great corporate athletes, right, who can do a lot of different things, and you can move at lightning speed?
It's a great idea, but I only feel that it can be great with one addition, one department that would establish what is a good AI usage. Just to give an example, if a salesperson comes in to a developer with a prototype that they've developed on Lovable or Cursor and like vibe coded it and say, build this but better, it might be a challenge for a developer to take this prototype and scale it, because sometimes this vibe coding, it just doesn't build scalable tools. So I feel like yes, that I would enjoy. I love working in an organization with a flatter culture, and even if we eliminate all departments, I don't think I'm gonna feel the difference because everybody's so AI forward. But that's where AI Center of Excellence comes in. Actually, it just came to me. We like it's useful to have a department that establishes the rules for everybody, just to what's good AI.
Well, Stan, to your point of if I was a developer and a salesperson said, "Hey, I've already tested this. There's a market for this. This is ready." That's for me, like, okay, that's outside of my wheelhouse. I can Dynamo DB and Lambda and all that stuff, and I can make this scale to the cows come home. But you've actually got customers. That's hard for me. You've done these meetings and you've gotten commitments already. Like, okay, that's cool. Like this is like that would be the ideal problem to have, right?
Cool.
Like Kathy, like what you were saying, right? It's not like these old corporations where you got the nerds in the corner that built this cool widget and they kind of toss it over to the salespeople and say, "All right, figure out how to make money. We're on to the next thing." We can't be so segmented anymore.
Yeah, do we get infinitely more agile as organizations? And I think you've got some questions in the agenda about like how does software change in the future?
Yeah,
The fact that a salesperson can go and build a piece of software, maybe it's not production ready today, but these tools will get there eventually, where you can build the prototype and then say, hey, now make this production ready and set me up in the right AWS environment with the right, size server, and build me the Stripe payment link. And next thing you know, you got your salespeople building like adjacent tools to your super sticky CRM that no one's ever going to leave, but they want 10 other things that they're asking for.
So I guess my question then, if there's this big convergence of different skills, how has AI affected how you'd hire or screen programmers? Because I think before it used to be, okay, this very technical test, and who can, I don't know, solve this, who could write FizzBuzz really well. But I think that matters less. I think. I don't know. What are your thoughts, and how has AI changed what you look for? What remains the same? What's less important? What's more important?
I feel like it's like you may have to name this podcast the mindset podcast, AI mindset podcast. I always look for mindset and motivation and like their curiosity level, like how do they solve the problem? I'm really always looking for problem solvers before I'm looking for skill set. And I also want it to be some semblance of a cultural fit, right? Like they have to be pretty bullish on AI to come and work in my organization because they're like, I can write better code than AI. I'm like, you're not going to make it here very long, right? That's just not our mindset and the direction we're going in. But those are skill sets I looked for before AI, right? Like, how do you solve a problem? I literally give people a problem to solve and to say, come back in 48 hours and show me how you solve this problem. It's like the equivalent of dating, right? You go on your first or second date, which is like your interview, you're on your best behavior. You're gonna eat like you read, the best etiquette books in the world, right? Emily Post's etiquette books. But 2 months later, I see you eating with your hands at a fancy dinner. Like I'm gonna be like, I don't want to date you anymore, right? That kind of same thing happens in the interview process. Everyone will show you they'll be super polished in the interview process, but give them something challenging and see how they function and operate. And then you kind of know if they're going to be a fit or not, depending on how a case study goes, for instance.
So to summarize, it's really about the tenacity to solve a problem that's in front of you, and being for the cultural fit much more so than like, okay, can I implement a LRU cache from scratch in Notepad, without checking Stack Overflow or something like that feels very 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think those are like, that's what gets you in the door at this company, right? But that's not what gets you the job typically, at least not in my organization. It's like, great, you know how to do those things. That's table stakes. Now, right? Are you going to be someone that just runs into the fire and tries to figure these things out, or are you going to be like, that's outside my pay grade, and I'm not willing to push myself to do it, right? I don't want that latter person.
Well,
The
you put
other
out
thing
some.
that's
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing that's changed is, we used to talk about what stack do you use, what languages do you understand, which cloud do you work with. All of that has kind of converged to, you can offload that to, if you're a good engineer, you can offload that to AI to basically figure out, whether to write in C# or JavaScript or Python. AI has kind of democratized that. So it kind of comes back to focusing on problem solving in a creative way, and that's what you need to test for. The other thing I'll say is that AI tooling in interview processes is a big part of, I think, what we do at Crossover as well, right? So or at Trilogy, and it's also happening across the market. So Meta is piloting using AI tools to assist coding interviews, and I think that's the way of the future. If you say don't do it, that does not reflect present reality anymore. And so I think it's definitely evolving in that way. How well can you use all the available AI tools to fulfill product requirements or problem solving needs?
I think Kathy said it well. It's about the attitude, and maybe some tools. I've heard some complaints about the Meta tool that it classified somebody's attitude as defeatist, but they were actually just contemplating an answer or something like this. AI will get better. You have to have an attitude of AI first. We will introduce AI, and sure, it will make some mistakes, but so does a human. And AI will get better, and AI will get perfect. And honestly, I interviewed I've started the Trilogy not so long ago, so I might be the latest starter out of this group. And I did like my interview process involved a lot of AI. And if I got rejected, I wouldn't have been upset. I would have looked at okay, well, AI saw something I'm not seeing. I thought I did well, I didn't do well, but I did well, thankfully. So I'm here. AI gods loved me.
Very, very glad that your something in the latent space was happy with you. So, Kathy, I got a question for you. Where do you see what's your like 1 to 5 to 10 year view? I really liked your view about departments kind of becoming a lot more fluid and maybe even going away. What are your other kind of business outlook? What stays the same? What changes? What's your medium term view on things as a tech CEO?
Departments are a constructed fallacy, and they will go away, especially in small to mid market companies. And they will blur in big enterprise companies like 1,000+ person companies. One, two, profitability will be king. Cash will be king. People will not chase growth as much as profitability, because I think that's the big squeeze that you can get immediately with AI is profitability. Although I also think I think one of you guys said it, you're going to start seeing tiny little companies nipping at your heels and taking away market share. If you're a big enterprise company, and it won't be one, it'll be like 50 of them. And it's going to be like getting attacked by fleas, right? You're not going to be able to swat them all away at one time. And they're just going to chew up the big companies, because we'll be able to build software so much faster. And it'll be more, I think, more niche. People are already talking about micro SaaS. It'll be very niche pieces of software that solve a very painful thing for someone in a specific sector, and people just start buying those and replacing some of the existing software stack that they're using. So, yeah, profitability, convergence of departments, and little companies are going to come out of nowhere and start taking away market share really fast. But it won't be one or two that you can just swat away. It's going to be like 50. Like, I think Salesforce, for instance, has a massive problem, right? They will have 50 competitors trying to chew away the stickiness of their product. The bigger you are, the worse it'll be, but it'll happen for everyone. It'll happen to us as well.
So do you think
Well,
enterprise? Everybody has questions. I'm the loudest. So do you think enterprise companies will start folding and just firing, like letting people go because they can't maintain growth or even the same level of headcount?
When was the last time Salesforce actually built something from scratch? Right? Oracle, when was the last time? Or they will probably just acquire the crap out of these little companies. That's probably what will happen. But these companies may not want to be sold, right? They may not have a situation where they're VC backed and the VC's got to return the money to the LPs, right? They might be completely bootstrapped and they're like, we're just going to let this ride. Let's see how much of market share we can steal. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. Will the big guys fold? No, that'll take forever, but they're going to feel pain. Everybody is going to feel pain with.
yeah, I mean, Google's feeling pain, right? I mean, of course, they're not enterprise SaaS, but their biggest, deepest market is being challenged. They've monopolized the search market for decades, and now everything is up for grabs. So, Kathy, so you were talking about little SaaS companies kind of coming in, solving point solutions being a thing. Now, our group has hundreds of SaaS products we've acquired over the past couple of decades. What's the AI strategy looking like for the products that we offer? So, we're doing great on efficiency and adoption. What's the strategy looking like for the products that we build and operate at this time?
Well, this is the beauty where I was saying, like, instead of having a roadmap that might take you 4 years to build with a 20 or 200 person team, we have a way smaller team building those things and moving fast, right? That's one of our competitive advantages, I think, now and ever so much into the future. So we should be able to acquire companies, make them operationally very efficient, and continue to have innovation happening with those products with much more efficient teams than they had in the past, right? What do? We buy distressed companies, which means they're usually running out of cash because they were in that traditional high growth VC or PE backed world where they're like, grow at any cost, right? Like, we need to see 20, 30, 50% top line growth. We don't care if you're losing 40% on the bottom line. Cash will be king in the future, and you'll be able to still grow, I think, at a clip where you're actually profitable. But that's going to take, I think, the industry a while to figure out. The mindset still for these mid-market companies, how many unicorns? Anyone got Google or Perplexity? How many unicorns were announced in like the last 5 years? I heard a quote from Joe on a podcast last week that it was 1,000. If that's the case, I guarantee you very few of them are profitable, right? How do they get profitable? And or do we buy them, make them profitable, and still keep them growing?
Yeah, it said 1,070 according to Perplexity.
There you go.
What I look to as kind of a similar industry where this may have happened first is entertainment. Now you have the enormous networks with huge properties and studios and whatnot. But what I watch now is YouTube, where it's much smaller and scratches my entertainment preferences a lot more in a targeted way. That might be channels with one person or 5 people or 10 people, and they can be enormous. I mean, some of these very small in terms of headcount YouTube channels have better ratings than the larger networks, and they're meeting the demand in a much more precise way. I think it's going to be similar with SaaS, right? Where you can say, okay, you can have a very small company meet a very big demand. So that's it. So then, how do SaaS companies differentiate themselves in looking a couple of years from now? Because I think, okay, with a version of Claude or ChatGPT 5 years from now, if you can describe a piece of software, you can have it. So then, how do they differentiate themselves in 5 years from now if it's not in terms of features or how great their code is?
I think it's by targeting really niche verticals and solving a really big pain point. I keep beating up on Salesforce, but I think this is a company that everyone understands. Salesforce is just a general CRM. They were just the first people to take CRMs from on-prem to cloud. That was their competitive advantage. That was like the category creation that they did, back 25 years ago, plus years ago. Now, but everyone that's used Salesforce, and I unfortunately have had the luck of like owning the Salesforce instance multiple times in my career, you have bastardized the crap out of that platform to make it work for your use cases. You have spent buco bucks on developers and admins. Most companies that have Salesforce in-house have to have at least one developer, if not a couple, to constantly be iterating on it. And, they have their 3 releases a year, and guaranteed every release will break something. So you got to be ready for that in their sandboxes. But people have customized it, and it still doesn't always do what you want it to do. So what if someone comes out, and I know this is happening right now because I have a friend building it. He's building a micro SaaS CRM platform specifically for the residential real estate market, right? And he's one-man show, and he's already got big brokers buying his product, right? So he is solving a problem because these guys don't want to use Salesforce. They don't want to use HubSpot. They want something that's super custom for their exact type of workflow that they have. Real estate agents are always on the go. They're never in front of their computer. They're not going to type in their crap. They want to talk about it, most likely, and just let it be like a voice note that fills everything out. So that's what he's doing, right? And you're going to see this over and over again in different industries.
So isn't this doom? Isn't it the end of like seriously? Like you keep saying that the big guys are going to be okay and they'll take a while to fall, but then you mentioned that it's going to be 50 small, very micro SaaS trying to like biting a tiny piece each. And if a tiny piece is like 100 customers, then that adds up 50, 100. It's 10,000 customers, paying customers losing from a particular problem. And Salesforce is large. Salesforce like solves many issues. So then, how will they survive? Really?
They'll just buy them. They'll probably buy the companies, most likely.
But then, okay. Well, but the problem. So the solutions they provide will evolve, sure, but the pool of people requiring the solutions is the same. And then, do you have to? So if you start losing to a micro SaaS, you have to take your tiny bit of your cash pile and spend it on micro SaaS. They'll obviously ask for a lot of money because they have high potential, but then you can only buy so much because your customers don't change. Like they steal them from you. You take them back with an acquisition, but then the new guy comes in, and there's an endless source of new guys. So how will Do you agree with me? Do you see the Salesforce like is not looking good?
Can increase their prices to make sure they're making up, right? Eventually their roadmap, their time will run out, but it's going to take some time. I am My crystal ball doesn't go that far out. They could cease to exist, but I don't know if that will happen. I think they will just feel a lot of pain, but these guys have cash reserves that will last for a long time.
Was talking to a
Yeah,
AAA
also,
gaming studio about this. I can't name them, but we were trying to sell them cost optimization, and they were almost laughing. I was like, we don't need to. So I think they'll be okay for a while. But Stan, I slightly disagree on the point of if the customers don't say the same, because if you can target these micro niches, uh, in terms of like the 1 to 2 people real estate business, you're not competing with HubSpot and Salesforce. You're competing with a Google Sheet. Uh, and so if you have a new product, the customer base of realtors who can use this one particular micro SaaS is I think the pie is getting bigger. And so in that sense, like I'm an AI optimist in that there's so much room for new businesses that even if these big behemoths get hurt and there's talk of all these people losing their jobs, I think there's more places for them to go. Um,
That's true.
it'll,
I
it'll just
immediately
be
changed my
more
mind.
granular.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, here's an example too, right? I just Perplexity quickly, fastest companies to 100 million in ARR, and Lovable, Cursor were the top two fastest, 8 months and 12 months, right? So they basically became unicorns within less than 12 months from starting.
Which is
There was no, what are they taking? What are they replacing, if anything?
so. I want to tell a story about that. I was, this is going to date me slightly, but I would, for my whole career, I'd be using Emacs and then say, okay, is there an IDE that can beat that? Go to Eclipse. Nope, back to Emacs. Go to, all these different things have come and gone over the years, always end up back at Emacs. Cursor was the first product through my entire career since programming as a nerdy 14-year-old kid that said, okay, this can stop me from using Emacs. So I appreciate the value that they're adding because that was a lot of personal inertia that they were able to overcome for me in terms of productivity. So I didn't realize that they were that fast. So was it 8? You said 10 months to 100 million?
For
To a
Lovable, it was
billion.
8. For Cursor, it was 12.
Wow.
Time to 100 million, which is a billion valuation, give or take. I'm thinking these AI companies have it's probably more than 10x. It's probably like 20 to 30x valuations just because of the speed of their growth. But yeah, so were you paying for Emacs?
Oh no, that's open source.
Okay.
that's the thing with IDEs, right? Like most of them are open source. There's only a handful that you actually pay for, and so yeah, they're
The Cursor
Eclipse is paid.
Cursor, I'm on there. I think I'm paying 20 a month to Cursor, plus I probably burn through another 50 or 60 at least on my personal. And Claude Code, I'm on the $100 a month. Yeah, it's and Perplexity, I'm a Perplexity Pro. It's amazing we're all using Perplexity as a verb now. It used to
Yeah.
take a bit of time to achieve verb status. But no, I love Perplexity.
Yes. So the question, kind of to Stan's question, yes, Salesforce will have 50 competitors nipping away with them, but is there a net new? There's probably a lot of net new customers to get too that just weren't using software before, or it was all in their email or a spreadsheet or in their heads, right? And they're like, this makes life a lot easier. So there's a lot of which ways this will happen. I don't know if software will fully go away, but I think some software will feel pain for sure.
The other thing is a lot of these SaaS, companies will not scale beyond tens of millions of dollars in revenue, right? And those are insignificant to guys like Salesforce. So unless it hits some critical mass, and when it does, then they'll be on Salesforce's radar for acquisition, and if it makes sense, then
Yeah.
they'll do it. So that's how it goes.
But I like that we said you don't have to chase hyper growth, right? If like, back to Kathy's point, you just have to be profitable, and I like that a lot more, right? I watch a lot of these internet entrepreneurs who say like you could achieve great wealth with 3 dry cleaners and a car wash that are profitable. And that's in a lot of sense financially, like, yeah, you don't have to skyrocket to the moon in order to have a sustainable, solid model, especially if it's only a few people behind that company. Okay, I think we're getting close to the end. Any other, Kathy, what do you think for young people just getting started in the industry? What advice do you have for them?
Find a mentor, find the head monkey that you can emulate, really, and help. Most people who are successful, if they see someone grinding and working hard, they will gladly give you their time for nothing because they want to see you succeed. They want their knowledge to go on with someone else. I do it all the time. I mentor quite a few people outside of this org and in this org. Um, find that mentor and get close to them, and make their life easier, and they will give back to you a ton. Get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid to run into the AI fire. It is scary, but like it will pay for itself. And just always be learning. Like there's something new. You guys see it every day. Sometimes 5 new things a day. Like you can't keep up. Just keep chipping away at it. The more you learn, like the next round of things get easier to learn, right? And so you're just in this constant loop of learning. Document the things you're learning, like the things you really have great takeaways for, and sort of put them into your workflow and into your day-to-day. But whatever stack you're using today, you won't be using in 3 years. I guarantee you it will change tremendously. Just keep like on the pulse of things, and find some people that you really admire in the tech world and follow them on, whether it's on X or LinkedIn or their Substack or wherever you can get content from them. YouTube, follow them religiously, listen to everything you can. But it's a lot of learning. You will never stop learning in tech. That is one thing I love the most about it, is it's sort of you're always on your toes.
Well, I'm really hoping that this recording that we're doing right now is going to add to that collection. So hopefully there's young people listening to this who are inspired. Kathy, I'll put all the places to follow you, Trilogy AI Center of Excellence, in the notes for the show. Thank you so much for your time, for being here, for sharing your expertise.
Thanks for having me. This is great stuff. I hope you guys have a lot of awesome guests and put a lot of good content out into the world for other people to learn from. That's the whole point of these.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Take
Kathy.
care.